Hi, everybody. Hello. Hi. Have a seat. My name's Yumi Stynes. I'm chairing this session. Welcome. If you'd like to move and get closer to the stage, please feel free. Let me introduce our speakers today. On my left is Clare Press. Clare's the author of 3 books, including Wardrobe Crisis, How We Went from Sunday Best to Fast Fashion, which was named one of the best books of 2016 by The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald. Clare's 3rd book, Rise and Resist, How to Change the World, is about activism, and later Clare will be signing copies of that out in the lobby. And she also has an incredible podcast called Wardrobe Crisis with Clare Press, and she is Vogue Australia's sustainability editor-at-large. Lauren Winzer is a cult tattooist with a following of devoted fans who adore the way that she's breaking down the macho stereotypes around tattoos. She is co-owner of celebrated tattoo studio Hunter & Fox in Sydney. Lauren designs her own art and is a favourite for celebrities like Noah and Miley Cyrus, Game of Thrones actor Sophie Turner and Post Malone. She'll also be tattooing here at Dark Mofo tonight. Please make them welcome. Okay, formalities aside, we're here to talk about the dark and light side of adornment, and I think this is something that you both experience in your work. So can we get started on this topic by talking about the role that fashion plays in your visual identity? Do you want to start, Clare?
I think when we talked about this before, we talked about what sort of role fashion plays in crafting women's identities. And I thought that the first thing I wanted to do is dispel that myth that it's only women that are frittering around being flimsy and fashionable and it's such a surface thing and it's not serious. If you look historically, it was men who were, I guess, pushing the boundaries of fashion. Perhaps think about, who's seen that film The Favourite with Olivia Colman? And it's all those guys in their 18th century wigs and their powdered faces and their rouge and their frock coats and their shoes have got all buckles of jewels on them. They were basically saying through their clothes, look how rich I am. So that was kind of how fashion was crafting their persona. But then I looked it up, and actually those wigs were not really about being rich. They were about hiding your syphilitic past, because in the 15th century, it was about people's hair all falling out and being really patchy, which is why they wore the wigs. But I think that nowadays we have this idea that fashion is silly women's business and it's not very serious. Whereas I would argue that, in fact, it's a political tool. It's very, very powerful when it comes to how we communicate to others about how we want to be seen in the world, and it can be also about expressing our values.
Very much so. Do you agree it's about expressing your values, the way you adorn yourself?
Yeah, 100%. For me, with the clothes that I wear, it's about expressing my personality. If I'm having a bad day, I'll usually wear a lot of black. If I'm having a good day and I want people to talk to me, I'll be out there and colourful. And then on the tattoo side of that, I mean, all my tattoos are from memories, things that make me happy, things that are about my personality. So yeah, that's showing everyone what I'm about or who I am.
It's interesting to bring up gender in this stage of the conversation, because for men are traditionally the recipients of tattoos, aren't they?
It still is more males than females, but it's leveled out so much in the last 8 years that I've been tattooing. Me being heavily tattooed as a female in Sydney when I first started was shocking to people, and now it's so much more common. Like, maybe not to the extent of like hands and neck and everything, but there's females out there with full sleeves and they're going undercover to work, and that's becoming more normal.
Just before, when we were backstage, we were talking about this, and I was saying, do you still kind of get those attitudes where people are like, I judge you. I judge you as being something rough, not savoury, not professional. And you told me the story about when you were working for a stationery company.
Yeah.
Tell them that, it's interesting.
Before I tattooed, I just worked in office jobs, pretty straight phone companies or, stationery companies. And the last one was the stationery company, and I got the job with blonde hair, long sleeves, tights, like very undercover. And I'd been doing that job for a couple of years, and then one day the summer was just too hot to cover up in a cardigan, so I took it off, and my boss was just mortified, like as if it was suddenly going to change the way that I worked, even though I looked the exact same the last 2 years that I was working there. She just didn't know. And I, just for whatever reason, went home and dyed my hair brown one day and came into work, and she stood up and applauded me in front of the whole office, like, just so embarrassing. And it didn't change who I was, but she was just judging me because of the way that I looked.
Yeah, right. But that's what we're kind of talking about, I guess, is how fashion can be a tool for oppression and for liberation. Do you agree that it can be both, Claire?
Yeah. I think we read codes in the way that people present themselves visually. We talked about this before, didn't we? Like, you can kind of go, they're my people, or they're not my people. Or you judge them according to some weird code that society has told you the visual communication tools that they're expressing conforms to, right? But the double-edged sword is that you can't control that. So you might set out to be presenting a certain image, one of power, one of, I don't know, confidence, or one of, I don't know, take your pick. But you can't control how other people read those codes. And then, I mean, I think the other thing about fashion is that it can be used as a tool for oppression. We all know that. Often the kinds of ideas that society has about women are pegged to how she dresses and what she wears. And I think it can be used as a tool to kind of keep women down. And I think that fashion media has its role to play in that, even though I'm part of it as well.
Big time. I should mention that we're taking audience questions via text message. If you'd like to text them in, the number will come up on your screen, 0436, I'm just going to write it down, 910039. So we'll be taking them in the last 20 minutes of the chat. And the purpose of that is that you can think through your questions, you don't get stage fright, and we can filter out the ones that are just comments, not questions. So here's a big question. It's hard to answer. Who are we dressing for? So with your ink, who are we getting inked for?
For me, it's so personal that it's always for me. But in my clients, I can kind of, and maybe it is me being judgmental, but I can feel that sometimes it's not just for them. And it's more of a, maybe it's trendy or what's popular, and that's what's encouraging them to come and get tattooed off me. And that's a small percentage, but I think for the most part it's for yourself.
So in that situation, do you ever try and have some sort of editorial control and say, look, this isn't for you?
To be honest, not really, because the way that they email through and make the appointment, they've got 2 months to sit on it. So if they're waiting the 2 months, they're going to come in, then they still want it, whether it's for whatever reason. I mean, if they're going to commit to that and come in at the end of the day, then obviously in a small part, it's for them as well. So, I mean, there's nothing that I won't tattoo anything offensive, but there's really not much that I wouldn't do, because it's all personal. And for me, if I think something, like a lot of people will ask, oh, if you think it's ugly, will you not do it? And that's just my personal taste. So if I can do a good job at it, of course I'm going to do it, because people might look at my tattoos and think, oh my God, why the fuck would she get that tattoo? But I love it and I think it's awesome, you know? So it's all personal opinion.
In order to unpack the choices that go on, or the thought processes that go on in getting new tattoos, do you mind if we talk about one of yours?
Sure.
I noticed on your fingers you've got the word made.
Oh, mermaid.
Mermaid.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, for a lot of reasons, I grew up near the ocean. Little Mermaid's one of my favourite films that I connected with as a child, and I just love all the fantasy. Everything to do with the ocean has always fascinated me. So this whole arm's actually all underwater, Little Mermaid theme, and it's just something that's always been important to me in a fun way, and also the way that I grew up as well.
If you're a stranger to tattooing, often tattoo artists, if they don't have a relationship with you, they're quite reluctant to do your hands, definitely your face and your neck, because it's sort of like it's a threshold.
It all actually began because the Queen owned your hands and your neck, so you weren't allowed to tattoo them.
I didn't know that.
And so you could get everything else done, but the Queen still owned this, so it was out of bounds. And then it just became a bit more of a tradition where, again, there's not much I will say no to. I just think if someone wants something so badly, I might as well do a good job, otherwise they're going to go somewhere else and get it done anyway, you know. But for me, I'll always try and have the conversation if someone wants to get their hand done and they don't have any other tattoos. It's just a big commitment, and as much as you don't want to have to think about it, it might stop you from getting a job. It might stop you from doing a lot of things, and I don't want to be the regret of someone getting something that they love and then it's stopping them from doing something, you know. So not only that, and it also just looks really awful if you have no tattoos and then you just have a big hand tattoo. It looks like a glove.
Yeah, it's sort of like you work up to a hand tattoo.
Yeah, I think so. It's a big commitment, you know. And even for me, I'm as much covered up as I really possibly can, and I still look heavily tattooed. So if you are going for that, there's really no hiding it, to be honest. So it is something that you really do have to think about.
It is a dangerous idea to get a tattoo, I reckon. Like you say, it looks like a glove if you get it done wrong. From a fashion perspective, I'm always going to be erring on the side of buy the glove, wear the glove. When you get bored of the glove.
Take the glove.
Yeah.
I mean, the permanence
Yeah.
is something I find frightening.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about this idea of permanence. Sunday best is it's just such a lovely idea. It's delicious to me, you know, that we used to get dressed up in these outfits that were our special going out outfits, maybe for church, a wedding, a funeral, and we kept them pristine. And our friends would all know us in those outfits. That was our special going out outfit. There was a semi-permanence
Yeah, maybe.
to that outfit.
That was all sort of tight. So I wrote this book, it's called Wardrobe Crisis, but the subtitle is How We Went from Sunday Best to Fast Fashion. And it's about the evolving fashion system and how we've gone from this place where we used to be deeply connected with how things are made. We used to know the seamstress on the corner or the cobbler down the street. We could even know where the materials were grown and it could be local to us. But now that our clothes are made mostly on the other side of the world, mostly by people we never will see, and we have no real relation with, and often people who are exploited. That's become a very different picture. But that idea of Sunday best can be used in different ways. It can be about, like you said, kind of quite a delicious permanence, the respect for keeping hold of things. But then there's also that stuff that it's also about being bound by cultural ideas of you must dress in a certain way to show your deference. I mean, I can't believe that the Queen used to own, or it was decided the Queen didn't just own the soil or the oil beneath the soil or the coal seam gas beneath your farmland, but also she owned your hands and your face.
Yeah,
okay, fine.
But she didn't want the rest of my body.
Nice.
Claire,
I do think, though, that we need to get back to a feeling of respect for and connection with our clothes.
and keep them and treat them beautifully, and they don't end up in landfill after a year. I think fashion is artillery in class warfare. Tattoos, clothes, they all speak this very subtle coded language. How can we, I guess, shore up our defences in this war?
I love your language around that, Yumi. I also do love the idea of clothes as being armour. I love the power of getting dressed and of taking ownership of the image that you portray and of demanding that people take you on your own terms with that. But like I said before, we're not in control of how others view us. And when you talked about your ex-employer judging you and maybe not having been willing to have given you that job if he'd seen your subversive tattoos, it just shows into sharp relief how we're not in control of how others see us. So when we're crafting a persona through our visual image, we want to, I guess, control that conversation or start a conversation that's equal, but sometimes it's out of our hands.
Like getting a tattoo, it for me gives me a lot of confidence and I feel confident, but other people will misinterpret that and take it the completely different way. And I think I feel good after I get one, I'm feeling like great, and then someone else will think, like just not understand it. So what I'm trying to put out there, that I'm a confident person, people might underestimate me or think that I can't do something or, you know, whatever, just because I do have them, which is the complete opposite, which is exactly what you're saying. Like you can't, whatever you're trying to go for, it really doesn't matter to anyone, or not everyone, you know?
I also think that gendered lens through which we look at some of this stuff is so important when it comes to how we get dressed. And Yumi, I watched your doco before this session. Has everyone seen it? Is Australia Sexist? I'm sure you have. If you haven't, I'm shamelessly plugging her. She came to me. You can watch it on the SBS, and I did. And, God, it's galling. There's a scene in it where that woman, you get that woman to walk down the street. She's wearing a denim miniskirt and a tank top.
Yep.
And she walks in front of some tradies who all give her their...
Yeah, and it's sort of implied that by them, the tradies, that she's invited this leering scrutiny.
You walked in front of me.
Yeah. You walked in front of me, so you deserve it. Yeah, it's interesting to try and sort of shine the light on that through the lens of fashion, whether fashion kind of invites that kind of response from people.
Absolutely. And this whole idea that somehow And that is tied in with clothes, that somehow women are asking for it if they dress sluttily or if they are subversive in a way that doesn't chime with how society wants them to look in their Sunday best. I know that's an old-fashioned idea, but, respectably dressed. That stuff is real, and I think that perhaps when we trivialize the idea of fashion and we say it's just clothes, doesn't matter, we forget that in fact it's hugely important and it does matter, but what matters mostly is how we allow society to judge us or frame us according to how we choose to present ourselves. And, just listening to Shaun White before talk about judgment, he mentioned that society is always judging us. Religion judges us too. I mean, these are codes within which we have to either find our place or fight, I guess, and clothes have a role to play.
They sure do. Lauren, I wanted to ask you about the way you get judged just from walking down the street. When people clock you, what are some of the assumptions that they make?
That I'm a loud personality, that they can come up and grab my arms and have a look at. The complete strangers will come up and think that, oh, I'm out there because the way I look is out there.
Yep.
Or just say, for instance, I get bomb checked every single time at the airport. Every time. The only time I didn't is because my dad has screws in his back and they went off. That was the only time I haven't been put over for the random drug bomb test. I went into Maya to buy my mum a perfume and they're like, you do know it's $200, right? And I was like, yeah, like, you don't understand. It costs a lot of money to look this cheap.
Yeah, it's funny how, like you're saying, Claire, you can't control how people read your statement. So forgive me if this is impolite, Lauren, but are you a quiet person? Like, are you not out there a little bit?
It depends on the situation, really.
Yeah.
If I'm walking down the street posting my mail or whatever, I'm not out there. I'm not trying to go have a chat. If I'm out at a club or something, then maybe yes, but I think it's not for people to assume if I want to be touched or not. I think come up and have a conversation, and figure out who I am or what mood I'm in or if I'm okay with that, instead of just being like, this is what I think of you, so I'm going to come up and grab your arm and get in your personal space.
Yeah.
I was telling you about that study that a Frenchman undertook in 2013. I sent it to both of you. I just was Googling what do people think about women with tattoos. I haven't even got a tattoo. I was like, better do some research. And there's this study. He's French. Let's face it, the French are quite conservative, and it's a bit old because 2013. But what he did was he got this woman who was 24 to sit on a beach reading a magazine. And she did so in her untattooed regular state, and then with the addition of a fake tattoo that was a butterfly, because that was considered to be friendly or something. And then he sat at a discreet distance and then watched how many men came to chat her up. And without the tattoo, it wasn't very many and it wasn't very rapid. And with the tattoo, it was much more and much more rapid. And the intimation was that she was more up for it, or bold, or something, because she was
bold
tattooed.
is
Wow.
the perfect word, I think.
When people come to you, Lauren, for a tattoo and they've never had one, so their skin is blank, do they emerge after their first tattoo somehow quite different?
Yes, there's one girl in particular that I'm obsessed with. So she first came in with a friend. She's on the spectrum and has really bad social anxiety, and I did her first tattoo. I have a lot in common with pretty much all of my customers because of the stuff that I'm tattooing. I'm doing Disney stuff, a lot of pop culture stuff, so that's my interest already. So we've already got something to talk about. So anyway, we got chatting. She would come in here and there with her friend, and then at the start of this year, she rocked up by herself. And I saw her slowly get more and more confident as she would come in, and she bought me, I'm obsessed with the nanny, and she bought me this nanny Barbie doll that she went out and found just to say thank you for giving her confidence. And it does do that for a lot of people. And for me too, if I see a part of my body that I'm uncomfortable with, slap a tattoo on it, it makes me feel better.
Really?
Yeah. I have some hectic stretch marks and I was like, well, gonna put a dolphin on that then, And it makes me feel good, it makes me feel confident. And unfortunately, when I started getting tattooed, I was really insecure about having a lot of freckles, and it made me feel confident to cover that up a little bit. Wow. And now I love them, and you can't really see them, but that was the thing that made me feel good about my body and owning my body and the way that I look. So yeah, I do find that. I've tattooed a lot of women that have had mastectomies and tattooed nipples on them, and that's just Like sometimes when I'm tattooing, I think, oh, it's a little bit of a frivolous job, like what am I doing? And then I get people like that and I'm like, oh, it is really important in so many different ways, whether it is owning your body, making you feel confident, or a lot of sentimental reasons too. Like, it just makes you feel good for the most part, you know?
That word frivolous, I like it, Claire. Do you ever think that your work is frivolous and you have to justify it?
No, but everyone else does. Can I just tell you something though? Because it was the word sentiment that made me think about this. So when I was invited to talk to you, I thought, why? Because I haven't got a tattoo, which makes me like this weirdo because everyone has one. Justin Bieber has 55. And until you said sentiment, I actually forgot that my grandfather, this is really true, my grandfather had got like a anchor because he was a sailor, like badly done with probably a knife or whatever. But he also had Joan tattooed on him before he married my actual grandmother, Joan. So he had to find another Joan when he got rid of the first Joan. That's
amazing.
Wow, that's fantastic. We're talking about the dark and the light side of tattooing. I want to know, Lauren, about people reacting joyfully to your artwork.
I'm so lucky I get it every day. I think not only the subjects that I'm tattooing like Barbies, Rugrats, like fun stuff, food. The one tattoo I was really nervous about, people get nervous about doing portraits of their children. I did a portrait of a Passiona can, which is my favorite drink. I was like, oh my God, this is my one chance to do this epic Passiona tattoo, and it's just so much fun. And I do, even last night when I tattooed it at the altar, everyone came in and the vibe there was just full of joy. We were laughing the whole time.
Right.
Everyone's just so excited, and I mean, yeah, it can be a personal thing, but also sometimes I get a tattoo because I love the way it looks, so it makes me happy. And
So what you're saying, so in my mind, when you get a tattoo, it's like you've consulted, you've seen a psychic, you've asked all your best friends, you've gone to the art gallery, and then you make this very solemn decision. But to hear you speak, it sounds much more flippant, I guess.
yes, I think that side of it exists a lot, but for me personally, because of the subjects that I'm tattooing, it is more of a light, fun, fuck it, let's do it sort of vibe. But I'm not saying that there's definitely people, even for me when I first got tattooed, I sat on the idea for so many years, thank God, because if I got the tattoos that I wanted when I was 16, I'd be crying bloody hearts and emo, And I sat on it for so long, and I got the first one, and then after that, you're just like, you know what, it's not that big. It is a big deal, but in another way, it's not that big of a deal. So all these other ideas that I'd stocked up, I was like, yep, let's go. I only ever wanted 2 tattoos, and now...
So is it you that has the Passiona can?
No, I did it on
for someone else?
Yeah,
Okay, just
yeah.
wanted to know. So that's the light side of fashion and adornment. Claire, here's a bit of a grim question. Are sweatshops
Yeah.
that use child labour, are they so common that we're all likely to be wearing at least one thing that is exploited child labour?
Probably.
Like right now.
Absolutely. When you asked me about the dark side before, and I just told you a story about my grandfather, there is a deeply dark side to the culture of fashion that we find ourselves operating in today. According to the Global Slavery Index 2018, which was put out by the Walk Free Foundation, there is $4 billion worth of fashion products alone on Australian high streets that are at risk of modern slavery in their supply chains. And fashion's in the top 5 industries that are potentially tainted with modern slavery. I'm good at stats on this because I say it often, but we need to send to the stats to realise the enormity of it. So there's 40 million modern slaves globally in the world today. I mean, it's a terrible thing, obviously, but I think it's also a hidden thing. We don't know about it. In fashion, it could be garment workers. It could be children picking the cotton in cotton fields. It's also absolutely rife in the food industry. I'm sure you've probably heard of all the stuff around modern slavery in the fishing industry. But I think if we're talking about the dark side of fashion, then it can be this wonderful tool for empowerment. As we've said, it can be so enjoyable to construct an identity from clothes that make us delighted. But we need to remember that someone's made those clothes and that potentially those people have not been treated with the dignity that they deserve. But also the environmental impacts of the fashion industry are dark as well. And a lot of the work that I do is around trying to raise the conversation or shine the light on that conversation about how bad the fashion industry can be for our planet and also what we can do to fix it.
Well, your book, Rise and Resist, wanted to ask you about it. It feels like we're living in really scary times. You know, a lot of us feel powerless. I get the creeps whenever I hear Donald Trump's voice. It just makes me go, bleh, like I've got a fur ball coming up.
But then look at the baby blimp balloon flying over London, and then you feel a bit better, don't you?
So tell me, what sort of activism can actually make a difference?
At a festival of dark and dangerous ideas, I do think it's important to remember that we are living in quite dark times politically. I mean, all due respect to previous speakers, but our Prime Minister is a religious person who is also a coal fan, who is also making sure we hurtle towards climate disaster in our short-term and long-term future. This stuff fuels what I do every day. I think that as a journalist, but also as a consumer, we've got choices that we can make around how we could try to be more connected with our Earth, how we can make more responsible decisions that limit our impact on the planet in particular. And I think during times when it can be very scary, and climate is the kind of context for this, we need to take our power back and make sure that we become everyday activists, not be overwhelmed, actually just make more informed, more mindful decisions about everything we do, like everything we buy, where we move our money, all of that. But we need to not get too scared and too gloomy about it, right? And for that, we need each other. So we got to find movements and join them.
So to shorthand what you've just said, do you shop less for clothes?
I shop for a lot of op shop clothes and vintage clothes, and I shop carefully for fashion that I know has been produced with a degree of transparency behind its supply chains.
Okay.
Vinnies, though.
Vinnies is all right by you. If Clare Press says Vinnies is all right, that's bloody tops. Lauren, I want to ask you about your mum. So how old is she?
That's a really good question. She's in her mid-50s.
Yeah, okay. She was uneasy about your career choice to start with. Can you tell us?
So when I started tattooing, my mum didn't come into the shop for 3 years. I was on the covers of Tattoo magazine. She was like, cool.
Oh, like, really?
Didn't really get it, didn't really want to get it. And then all of her friends at St. George Bank, where she used to work, started wanting to get tattooed off me. And she was like, oh, okay. Like, this mustn't be so bad. And she eventually came in before I was doing a convention. I just remember her going, oh my God, you have chairs and a banner? And I was like, what did you think I was doing? Like, I just think the generation gap, the people that she grew up in Liverpool, which can be a little bit of a rougher part of Sydney. The people that had tattoos there were baddies, and that's all she ever knew. And it's more, for me, I love to educate her, and I love to educate her friends and make her okay with it. Now she's hitting me up, she wants a bloody frangipani tattoo, or when can I get in, or, but the thing...
Do you make her wait in the normal wait list?
I'm dying to get her in. Every interview I've ever done, it's like, who would you love to tattoo? I'm like, Mum. And then eventually she texts me and she's like, I'll do it. I was like, yes. So I'm waiting for the day, but from those 3 years and her not celebrating that or understanding it, that's on me to educate her and educate people, like even when I'm talking about Myers or whatever, to show that you can check my bag, I'm not going to steal anything. If I'm buying this, I've got the money, you know. It's hard for some people. I see with the boys that I tattoo, they have a short fuse when people judge them, but for me, I like to educate people. I like to kind of school them, you know, and I think that's kind of my role as a heavily tattooed woman. That's all I can really do. The thing that made my mum be okay with tattooing, there was this tiny little photo in the regular newspaper of me, and she's like, oh my God, you've made it. And then she's like, the hairdresser even knows who you are, and there's like 100 people where I grew up. I was like, yeah, she knows everyone that we live with,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
But it's just about trying to make it a little more normalized so that it's comfortable for some people, you know.
One of the things I love about doing these talks is that there's often people who are coming along who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and they're super open-minded.
Yeah.
And I would love it if somebody left from hearing this talk who was 70 and went and got a tattoo.
Come to the altar between 6 and 10 p.m.
Would you have any advice for that person who's thinking about their first one?
One thing that my mum used to say that would really bother me is, I'm too old to get my first tattoo. Who cares how old you are? It doesn't matter. My oldest first time was 84.
Wow.
And she got a little cartoon owl on her back because I tattooed her granddaughter. She was actually from Germany, so she, you know, tattoos for her was such a negative part of her upbringing, her life, and I tattooed her granddaughter for so long, and her granddaughter, who's lovely, got her this birthday card that had 2 little owls on it, and just for some reason she's like, you know, you made me feel okay about tattoos. It's not such a negative thing, you know. So I just think there's, yeah, if you're feeling it, just do it. If it makes you feel good, do it, you know.
But that's so powerful about changing the conversation, isn't it? Like if you think about tattoos being associated with Auschwitz, or, I mean, less frighteningly but similarly negatively, prison culture or whatever it is, you're changing the conversation.
100%. Even today when I went to a restaurant, there was a book and it was convict tattoos. All the naughty convicts that came here, their tattoos and that history, and it's just, it does have a bit of a terrible history, but it's, yeah, it's about changing that, making it something that's really art-orientated and something that's positive.
Claire, one of the things you've talked about is the democratisation of fashion. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, so that sounds good, right? We like democracy. And on one hand, the idea that we democratise fashion is fantastic. Let's pull down the velvet rope and make sure that everyone has access to fantastic clothes and that it's not this elitist thing that is only accessible to, I don't know, Marie Antoinette. They were my notes I wrote down because Marie Antoinette, her hair stylist, Rose Bertin, who used to make those nutty things that, you know, the Prix Saint-Amand, the massive things like with a ship in a wig, right? Those hats and wigs would cost the equivalent of 20 times a skilled worker's yearly wage in Paris at that time. But we still do that now. So couture, I know it's only like it's 4,000 couture customers in the world, right? But they would think nothing of buying a dress that costs $250,000 and more. So in that context, the democratization of fashion is awesome. Like, we should all be able to go to a shop and buy a reasonably priced, fairly made garment and enjoy it on a level playing field. But that's not really how it worked, is it? What happened with the democratization of fashion is the fast fashion change. So what that means is now we're producing twice as many clothes as we used to produce 15 years ago. We're selling them so cheap that you could buy that glass of wine on stage, sorry, would cost more than a dress in some shops. But someone always pays the price for too cheap. So it's a fake price. And then also it encourages us to throw them away. So there's a dark side to that too.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the dark side because one of the things that comes up, I think, when you're dressing yourself is you're trying to find a way to express your authentic self. And if something's that you've purchased has an authenticity to it, that's so alluring, isn't it? And is it harder to get that with fast fashion and its democratisation?
I think it is, because I mentioned before that we've lost that connection. But you can still find it. You just need to look for it. Across the street is an amazing store that I just happened upon called the Spotted Quoll, I think. Do you know that store? Amazing. Everything in there is sustainably sourced. She's got all these amazing knits that are all made from organic wool and they're all plant dyed. She can tell you the origins of everything in there. It's fantastic. You can find that. You can also make your own stuff. You can dress in loads of strange outfits you got from the markets and the op shops and work at Vogue, which I do. So there are ways to do it, but I just think we need to jolt ourselves back into thinking in a different way about our connection with clothes and with the people who make them and where they come from.
I'm interested to get a volunteer or two. Does anybody here feel like getting up on stage so we can talk about their outfit?
Oh.
And if you've got tattoos, even better, because then we can talk about your tattoos as well. Yes, please do. Come up here. We would love to talk to you. Make some space. And anyone else? Yep. Please come as well. So what I wanted to talk about, and with the assist... Yep, great. Come, follow the usher. Back to this idea about, you know, people choose to adorn themselves in ways to express themselves through tattoos, fashion, makeup, but we can't control how people read that statement. I think this is really interesting. And I think that it's so unconscious in women. We wear this armour every day, conscious that people might misread our statements.
Great hair, by the way.
Really?
Great.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So what I thought would be really great, given your expertise all those years at Vogue and knowing the fashion industry inside out, plus your ability to decode tattoos, it would be so interesting to try and understand how you read the code of other people's fashions.
That's a scary idea.
It's slightly scary. Come up here. We're not going to tear you apart. We just want to have a little look and kind of try and figure out what you're going for. Thank you. Could you tell us your name, please?
Sorry. My name's Shannon.
Shannon. Okay, Shannon, are you a Hobart local?
No, I'm from Brisbane.
From Brisbane. Okay, talk us through Shannon's outfit. Have you got any tattoos?
Yes, I've got one on my finger. Got one here. Can't see the rest.
I really don't want this to descend into that thing in Who Weekly where it's like hot or not, and then you look at a picture of like someone at the Grammys, and then someone bitches and gives them like out of 10 for no.
No, we're not going to do that.
We're not going to do that.
No.
I would not have said that you came. Sorry, what was your name again?
Shannon.
Thank you for coming over here, Shannon. I appreciate it. I would not have said Brisbane. To me, you look quite Melbourne. You look like you understand the weather. You look quite Hobart. You look like you got the dark vibe going on. And I think that I am falling into a cliche, but I associate Brisbane with being kind of like colour and like, do you know what I'm saying? And that cliche around Melbourne being arty, I know we're in Hobart, but still down south being arty and a bit dark and a bit edgy. That's what you said to me. What's the tattoo? Can I see?
It's just a squiggly line.
Oh.
Like a little snake sort of symbol?
Yeah.
So,
And there's the one on the inside forearm. Lauren, have you got any thoughts on the tattoo?
For me, it more speaks art than anything.
Art.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
right.
collecting art. With a lot of geometry and stuff, this is just generalizing, like I see that more as an art thing than necessarily a representation of something specific.
Okay.
can we ask you what this, was it a snake or a squiggle?
Yeah, I just used to draw things on myself, and then I did that myself. I regret it a lot.
I love it.
And it was just when I wanted to change, and so I associate water with this squiggly line and change. So it's a concept. This one's also a concept that I had.
And are you an artist?
Yeah, but I also studied architecture, so I'm an architect.
Fantastic. So I feel like the read was fairly on point with the outfit and the
I
person.
know, I'm drawn to the tartan obvs.
Yeah, I love this.
Have we got another volunteer?
That's me.
That's you. Oh, right.
I'm
Okay.
not the stagehand.
Yeah, oh, sorry. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Lauren.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Lauren.
Are you from Hobart?
No, I'm not. I'm a Sydney side.
Okay, Lauren's a Sydney sider.
What's with all these dark and arty people from Sydney and Brisbane? Come on.
I have the artistic talent of a spade.
Okay, so any thoughts about this? What's Lauren trying to express?
Can I see your amazing necklace? Not that one. Well, the first thing I think about when I look at you is that you've got edgy, excellent boots on that say something about the armour that you want to kick in the world, which I like.
Or that I wear a size 42 and I can't find shoes.
This is you've got very glamorous jewels on and very glamorous nails in a kind of like a voguey jewellery shoot manner, and I'm attracted to that. What do you do?
I'm a hooker.
You're a what?
A hooker.
Oh,
On paper, I'm a lawyer, but
get
in
out.
practice, I don't want to work that hard, so I don't.
Get out. And so the way that we imagine what that might look like is absolutely not how you dress. So, or not how you dress now.
No.
But you're dressed in a very sophisticated way with like, you know, bit of a sparkly diamond Vogue moment going on. But then we imagine that there's a different way that you would dress. Like, I love that. I love busting down the stereotypes of how we imagine people ought to look according to...
Wrapped up in what you've just said, there's also an assumption of what a sex worker dresses like.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
100%.
Yeah.
Even when I'm at work, I'm
Yeah.
not leather miniskirts.
Yeah.
All that jazz.
Do you have any tattoos?
I do. I am
Any-
tattooed from toe to elbow.
I do.
Undercover.
Wow.
And I had my first ever tattoo lasered off at your studio.
Oh, congratulations.
All right, can we please thank Shannon and Lauren? Thank you for joining us up on stage today.
I really want to know what tattoos she got removed.
Me too.
Thank you for coming up here and
Thank
being
you.
scrutinised.
Yeah, that was
Weird.
amazing. Can you look at my outfit? What am I trying to convey with mine?
Well, I was just liking your hair because you were saying Joan Jett to me.
Oh yeah, totally. Or like a heavy metal guy from a male.
yeah,
like
like
kind of just going
Whitesnake
for
or
the
something.
boys' hair.
Yep.
This one. Lauren, last time I visited a tattoo studio, it was Ken for Reals in Surrey Hills in Sydney. I watched him because I was interviewing him for the Art Gallery of New South Wales, and he was doing a huge back piece on a guy. And what I was struck by was how intimate it is to tattoo a person. You really actually, like you're sort of this close to a person at times, to their skin, you can smell them, you have to talk to them. Tell us about that intimacy.
It's kind of crazy to me because when I started tattooing, I was super introverted, really shy, not unfriendly, but just very quiet. And the job really forced me to be open and make other people feel comfortable because that's what I need to do to make them okay for me to touch them. Yeah. And obviously, they're comfortable to an extent to even come in, but you don't get to have a big chat and hang out for a couple of hours and get to know them and then go, cool, I'm going to touch your body. You just go straight in and then get to know them. So it's so reverse, and and it can be such a personal thing with even whatever you're getting tattooed as well. So it's, when you asked me that on the phone, I'd never really thought about that before because I was forcing myself to be okay with that, and I am, and that's what I'm comfortable with, but that is a really big reason why when people come in, they are so nervous because they're very vulnerable. It's not necessarily the pain or the commitment. It's one-on-one, very close, very personal, and you don't even know the person. Like, it's nothing that I ever really thought about before, but it's like, I'm so grateful that people feel comfortable for me to do that.
Do they ever cry?
I've had some emotional cries before, which is really hard for me because I always cry every time someone else cries. It'll be a dog passed away, or I just had this amazing woman and her mother passed away around Christmas, and so we did her handwriting and we got talking about how our mums used to make curried sausages and I used to hate them, and now it's all I ever want is my mum to make them. And then she came back in the other day and bought me like the instant curried sausages packet so I could make them at home. And it's just a really special, intimate thing that I get to be a part of all these people's lives, you know.
Do they tell you secrets? You know, like when you go to the hairdresser and you always tell them the secrets and you shouldn't have, and it's like the confessional, and then they will make a podcast about it.
Yeah, I know so much about so many people that I shouldn't know. Like, it's, again, with that instant intimacy, it's like, oh, we're touching, so I can tell you anything. Like, you're already at that level, you know.
And are you a vault? Is that part of it?
I've got a certain couple of people that I sometimes need to talk to because some of the things that I get told are quite heavy and I don't know. I'm generally okay for people to tell me pretty much everything, but there's some things that I get told and I don't know how to process that, and I'm not ready to hear certain things. And so, I mean, I go to a therapist, and I think that's really important for me because it is a lot of unloading personal stories and things like that, and I don't have the tools to deal with that all the time.
This is a question for both of you. How is your work going to change as people consume fashion more ethically?
I'd love to be out of a job in that regard. If everybody started to become extremely sustainable in the way that they consumed things, and there was no need for education around what unethical, unsustainable fashion, which is just the bit I work in, if there's no need for that, I'd be delighted. Don't think it's going to happen very soon.
Yeah.
Most people are not very aware of most of the stuff around sustainability. And I think if you live in a bubble of talking to people who are really motivated by things like climate action, you can think everyone's on that page. I really don't think that they are.
Right. Are people starting to change the way that they talk about their tattoos?
I don't know if it's so connected. The only thing that we're really focusing on and figuring out with sustainability is our use of plastic and disposables and things like that. But it's not necessarily a fashion way, but it is a big thing because you can't really compromise, you know, all the blood-borne pathogen sort of situations, but at the same time, we're using cling wrap, plastic wrapping everything, and it's just trying to find materials that will break down. And at the moment, there's not that much available to us.
Never thought about it.
It's such a new thing.
But there's plastic pollution everywhere we look, in every industry, and of course you must.
It's just trying to find something that will break down, but will also be safe to use. Everything I use is one use only, down to the tubes, everything. But it's just trying to find something that's safe enough.
If you want to feel better about it, at least your single-use plastic use has got a real reason. It's not a coffee cup.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So I've always felt pressure to have new outfits, or at least a new piece in a combination every time I go on TV. Not for life, but TV. Lately I haven't. I've just been wearing the same things over and over again in a sort of a cycle. Now, is this the way that we're going to be all going? Or is there a likelihood that I'll look back on 2018, 19 and go, oh, that was that time that we were doing that thing?
No. Carl Stefanovic and the blue suit, right?
But he's a man, it's
I
different.
know, but don't you think that changed the conversation a little bit? I don't know, because you work in TV. Do you still feel that pressure to be always different? Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of a way of selling yourself. So if you missed it, Carl Stefanovic wore the same suit every day for a year and nobody noticed. Whereas people commented constantly on his female co-host and what they wore, and they had to change it every single day. I think it's sort of like a way to make myself look like something worth looking at when I'm on the TV, which is part of the whole sell. It might not be that, look at me, the show is me, look at me. It's here the content of my words, but if I can just add value add 1%, but with my outfit, then that's helping me.
The good news is rental. That's the solution. So I don't think we're going to, or a solution. I don't think we're going to change people's fundamental desire to be delighted by newness, whether it's in fashion or anything else. But in the fashion space, the circular economy unlock is around rental, and I think we're going to see huge growth in the rental market, so that instead of just having to go to H&M and buy a new outfit and chuck it out, you could actually rent it and then give it back and someone else could use it, and therefore that would mitigate some of the problems around fashion waste.
Have you done it?
Yeah.
Really?
It's
I'm
harder
scared
in Australia. No, it's awesome.
What if it's smelly?
I knew you could say that. Someone once said to me when I was talking about old stuff, because I like to wear weird old shirts that come from markets, and they said, ew, like someone else has worn it. And so, but when you go to a really posh hotel for your whatever celebratory moments, do you think, oh, someone slept in the sheets? Or when you eat in like the best restaurant, do you think, oh my God, someone touched this knife before me?
Yeah, and the fork's been in someone's mouth. I mean, if you do think about it, you probably won't. Just eat with your fingers.
But so I think old stuff is awesome, and second, third, fourth, fifth, 90th hand is awesome, and we just need to jig how we look at that stuff. And the fashion industry also needs to stop lying to us that we just need relentless new stuff. Of course, we need new stuff sometimes, and we need to let the industry thrive and celebrate the good stuff, but we don't need to buy clothes to throw them away. I mean, I'm not saying you throw all your stuff away that you wear once, but the culture is a bit that way.
It is, it definitely is. We're taking your questions. If you've got a phone handy, 0436 9100 39. Yep, that's it there. We've got a bunch of questions in, and I haven't had a time to really sift through them. So I'm going to start with this one. Lauren, you said you'd only get tattoos that have a personal meaning to you for yourself. Would that exclude you from getting an unseen flash tattoo at a midwinter festival?
I don't just have meaningful tattoos. Sorry, maybe I miscommunicated that. But I've got some that are a little bit meaningful, but I've also got a Homer Simpson eating his head as a donut just because I like it. And I have gotten flash tattoos, I've gotten drunk tattoos, I've got all of them, to be honest. I've had my mum tattooed me.
What's a drunk tattoo?
When I'm drunk and someone else is drunk, and maybe I'll do it on I did this one on myself when I was drunk. I tattooed all my girlfriends, and I was like, wait, who's going to do mine? I was like, fuck. All right. I was there sweating, tattooing myself. I'm down to get flash in the moment. I've done that before. It doesn't have to be personal for me or anyone else. I just think whatever makes you feel good or whatever feels right, you know. But yeah, there's some that are meaningful to me that I love, and then there's some that I think just look nice or might look nice even on me, you know.
I like this question. They didn't give their name, but they said, can you please all stand up so we can see your outfits? First panel I've ever thought to ask this. So if you wouldn't mind,
Well,
can
we
we
made people
oblige?
stand on stage and show their outfits.
See, yeah.
This is confronting. Hi. You can judge this and give it a no.
Well,
Can we get someone to judge our outfits? And our
I think
tattoos?
just to see what we're wearing. I think the same person wanted to know is if part of the joy for you, Lauren, getting a tattoo, part of your joy in life is getting tattoos. What about when you're full? What about when your canvas is all?
I thought that.
So terrified when I started getting tattooed, especially being in the shop. If I had a cancellation, someone else did, it's like, let's just do something because it'll be fun. And now I have all these really fun tattoos, and I'm like, what if I have something really meaningful and I have no room? So I'm just being a lot more thoughtful about it now. We do have laser removal at our shop, and I really, really, really don't want to get it. But if it came to that and there was something that I wanted so bad, I've definitely got some
You'd scrub off
some
an old
bomber
one.
tattoos that I could just start getting removed and replaced. But yeah, I'm just trying to be a bit more thoughtful.
Okay.
Mindful tattoo removal and Marie Kondoing your body.
yeah.
For you, Clare Press, what are your top tips for making environmentally conscious choices when purchasing clothing?
Stop and think, do I really need it? Invest in things that you really love, that you respect, that have been made mindfully and carefully, that you can celebrate and you can wear and talk about and be delighted by and say, I got this from Spotted Qual, or I saved up and got this from Gucci, I don't care where it is. But just really being mindful about what it is you're buying.
So that sparking joy concept, because you just didn't mention Marie Kondo.
You know, Marie Kondo is freaking me out though, because she tells everyone to chuck everything out, but she has no thought for, or if she has had a thought for it, she doesn't express it or communicate it, where it goes when you've chucked it. And in her book, she's like, oh, one client had 90, well, it couldn't be 90, some number with 19 bags of clothes that we threw away. And it's like, really?
Well, let's hope that throwaway is just code for, it's a shorthand way of saying donated.
The minimalists are like that too.
Here's what I'm really interested to know, both your answers. Do you feel the same way about cosmetic enhancements as you do about tattoos in fashion?
Oh, I don't.
In the way of expressing yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. One of my best friends has the biggest fake tits I've ever seen, and that's what makes her feel good, and that's what... And same thing about not being able to control people's judgments on you. There's so many people that think it's okay to make comments or, oh, can I grab your boobs or whatever. And it's not about that. It's about what makes her feel confident. And like for me personally, I thought about it a long time ago, and then I just really hated wearing bras. So I'm like, never going to do that. But it's just one of those things that if you're self-conscious about something and you're committed to that, then why not? Or it's like, it's obviously a little bit more extreme, but dyeing and cutting your hair, like it's just about the way that you look when it comes down to it. Tattooing is body modification, so is piercing, injections, surgery, all of that. So it just, I can't really say and be hypocritical, oh no, that's too far, because it's really just your personal opinion.
Claire, I suspect you've
Yeah, I covered it from a different angle, but I'm listening to you thinking, yes, that makes sense, and I respect that. But my first reaction was, oh no. I see it through the lens of being told that you're too old and you need to look younger. And I think that there's so much pressure on women, particularly in society, to look younger than they are, and that in my industry, but elsewhere too, there's a lot of kind of expectation that you'll pump your face full of Botox or whatever it is people do. I do none of it, and I'm doing it in a very, very particular political way. I refuse to try to look like I'm 21. I'm not 21, I'm 42. In fact, I'm 43 in a minute. And I'm not going to go around trying to make myself look messed around with so I can conform to someone's expectation of what gorgeous youngness is.
But is that a privileged thing that you're saying because you look great right now?
Oh, thanks.
You're
It's all the wine. And also candlelight is a great way to battle age. But I know that's different from modifying your body, but it is a similar thing. I think that while, of course, it's up to everyone to make choices around how they want to express themselves and what they want to do with their bodies, I also rail against societal expectation that we have to fit a certain mold. And I think ageism is a huge thing.
Yeah, I have to agree. I know this isn't about me and my opinions, but I've been in TV and entertainment for 20 years now, and I have seen people's faces get really crazier and crazier.
But you can't hide it because your backs of your hands and your neck going to give you away.
Yeah, so I hope that I can just stick by my principles with that and just get old and crusty.
There is a Nora Ephron book, which is a memoir. She's the woman who wrote When Harry Met Sally, if you don't know who that is. And she wrote a book called I Feel Bad About My Neck. And every day I look in the mirror and think, me too, that's coming to me.
Okay, you've still got time to get one question in. There's some about ethical clothing, but I wish people would put their names. I should have asked for that. Is fashion an inherently feminist issue? I think because of women in the fast fashion industry who are being exploited.
And just really quickly on that, I think it absolutely is. There are 60 million garment workers in the world, and most of them are women. Something like 80% are women, and most of them are aged between 18 and 24, and have children. And the lion's share of those women are not paid a living wage. So if you are potentially exploiting another woman by the choices that you make to adorn yourself, then I think that's a feminist issue and one that we ought to talk a bit more about.
Okay. A question for Lauren. I want to get my first tattoo. What should it be?
I can't say that.
No.
There's so many people that come in like, oh, I want to get a sleeve. I'm like, what do you want to get it of? Oh, I don't know. What do you think? I'm like, well, what do you like? I think just get something that you love or represents something that you love. That's all I really have as opinion-wise for that. If you love it, no matter what it is, if you love it so much at one point, you'll always love it. I've got some tattoos that I would never get again now, but I love them so much at the time and the memory of it. I'll never regret that.
Well, I've loved every minute of talking to you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lauren
Thank
Winzer,
you.
Clare Press, and I'm Yumi Stynes. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Oops. Hello, everybody. Just a quick note to let you know that Yumi and Claire will be signing books in the foyer, and Lauren will be tattooing at Tats from 6 p.m. this evening. So if you'd like to go over and have a drink and then take part in what's been a really amazing experience. Otherwise, hope to see you later on this evening at Stan Grant. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Are you right? Sorry.